Hey guys, MSH Garage here bringing you another video. So it turns out by happenstance I was going to a Cars and Coffee this morning, and it turns out that it was full up, so I could not get into there. I wanted to kind of bring this video to you on the fly, a little bit of an organic experience being in the car. Turns out I already recorded this video once, but the first time the audio did not go through because my phone is a little trashed. So I had to go ahead and get my microphone set up so now I can bring you guys some nice crisp audio quality. And in the meantime, I looked up a couple of facts anyway to kind of enhance the video. So of course this video is going to be about the new 2021 Mach 1 bomb that just got dropped a couple of weeks ago. I want to kind of break this video up into a couple parts, and I'm also going to make this a two-part video. So the first part, I'm just going to talk about the Mach 1 since it's a new release, and I feel like I have to address this, right? I have a retro Mach 1 build. I want to talk about in phase two, the second part of the video, I want to go over some of the new additions to the car because it's been a little while, and I actually have some nice performance additions and mods to the car that have really dialed it in. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So I'm going to break it down first into a little bit of the history of the Mach 1, how it came about in Ford back in 1969 when it was first released, and then talk about, the iterations that happened through Ford, and then kind of relate, the past to the current day and my perspective on, how Ford has dropped this and what do I think about the whole thing. I've been thinking about it, and I think I'm a bit more of a mixed bag towards the not really a huge fan. I'm happy that Ford has done it. I'm happy that they're releasing it. It's an exciting time, but at the same time, there's some things I think they really missed the mark on. So real quick history lesson, the Mach 1 came out in '69, and it kind of is, for the first generation Mustang, was the pinnacle of Mustang performance from Ford. Of course, there's the Shelby models, there's a Shelby GT350, but the Mach 1 was very special. And for the Mach 1, there were, from what I recall, like 7 different engine offerings. Now, in reality, those engines came in the form of either the 302, the 351, or you get a 428, 429 Cobra Jet in that car, which was a monster. So you had some nice performance options that came in the Mach 1. And what do you think of when you think Mach 1? You think something fast, right? Because Mach 1 is the speed of sound, Mach 2 being twice the speed of sound. It's something that inspires speed and this idea of going really fast. And those cars were a performance pinnacle for the first gen Mustang. And it was a nameplate that eventually went on to replace the GT name badge for quite some time. I think for over a decade for the Ford Mustang. So it's something that's really ingrained and very important in the Mustang history. It carried through into even the 70s, into 78. There was a Mach 1 even for the second gen Mustang. And like I said, it came in a variety of different offerings. So back then, you got to remember, in 69 and 70, when these cars were coming out, options from the factory, modding wasn't as, probably wasn't as accessible back then. The cars were easier to work on, but the mod world obviously looks very different back then than it did today. And when they put, for example, the matte black stripes on the car, they painted those on there with stencils. That's a big deal back then. It's not like nowadays we can just slap a decal on. That took a lot of effort to do something like that. Things like the chrome emblems, meant a lot. The shaker hood was completely functional back then, and then eventually turned into the ram air scoops for the 71 through 73 models. Suspension upgrades for the performance, those are really dialed in cars, of course, because GM and Ford were battling back and forth. So the Mach 1 would go on to replace the GT, and rightfully so, since the Mach 1 was a better and higher rated performance model. But those cars had a lot more performance back in those days and really was in a nice position. People really liked the idea of getting a Mach 1 and the fact that it was a really sporty vehicle, inspiring sort of performance-oriented excitement about the car. And that was really special, I think. I think Ford did a really good job and made something incredibly unique and, kept on with the Mustang legacy. So then we go ahead and fast forward now to, 2003, 2004 with the re-entry into the Mach 1 market. And you know what? Actually, I'm a big fan of these Mach 1s as well. I really like them for 2003, 2004. But what was really great about this Mach 1 was the fact that, wasn't just a simple, badge car that they released. But for the Mach 1, what they did is they found a great niche in between the GT and the Terminator Cobra of the day. And what they ended up doing is they had a car that for the Mach 1 produced 300 horsepower out of that Texid block, which is so famous for the Terminator Cobra. And they had some great intake manifold in the car. I think they did a fantastic job in that vehicle also from the perspective of they gave it a functional shaker hood, they gave it a nice matte black spoiler, and even as far as putting also an upgraded performance suspension on the car. And what was really cool is they had a little play on words, and they put the Mach 1 audio system into the car, of course, to pay homage to it being a Mach 1. And they gave it a lot of nice retro styling as well. The nice Mach 1 emblems in the back, the rocker stripes on the side. They really did an excellent job on that car, I think. And at 305 horsepower, 305, it was a nice in-between, an actual, something that people would actually want to go for back, in the early 2000s, in between a Mustang that was 260 horsepower to one that was 390, almost 400 in the Terminator Cobra. So that was really smart move on Ford's part to do that, and it found itself sandwiched in a very nice spot and is a very coveted car, I think, for those days. So now we fast forward even further to current day, of course, to 2021, in which this new Mach 1 is going to be coming out. It's okay, I'll say, that it's a parts bin car. Manufacturers have to deal with this stuff all the time, and I can't really fault them for doing it. I'm not even going to harp on them for that necessarily. It's great that it has, a GT350 style front end, the new 2021. It'll be able to cool the transmission, it'll be able to cool the engine better, and they're trying to make it more track and performance oriented. But okay, let's go ahead and take it in retrospect, the history lesson I just talked about with regards to the 69 Mach 1 and the fact you have painted on stencils on that car. What do they do for this car? They can 3D print out a bunch of, plastic, garbagey Mach 1 symbols and emblems, put them on the car, and put vinyl decals on it, okay? Any 18-year-old can do that in their garage nowadays. And they're going to go ahead and package this thing together as a high-end, high-performance Mustang Mach 1 with a performance legacy and legend. That's insulting to me. That really gets to me. It's not so much that it's a parts bin car, and I'm sure it's going to perform very well. The Blue Bullet Mustang has also. It's a fantastic performer. But you're sandwiching it in a time where there are a multitude of S550 Mustangs. Now, I would say today there are just as many, almost if not more, Mustang options than there were back then as far as different cars. You've got, of course, your entry-level EcoBoost Mustang now. You have a high output, a new HO EcoBoost Mustang that they came out with just a little while ago, 2019, or with the new Gen 3. You have your standard GT. You have a Performance Pack GT. You have the GT350, and now the GT500. You have a Bullet Mustang, and we're not even getting into all the other little options, like you can get an RTR, you can get a Roush, you can have a Roush supercharger put on a standard GT from the factory. As I just mentioned, taking that history lesson again, in 2003, 2004, that 305 horsepower, that was a over 40 horsepower bump, depending on from the GT model. If it's 305, that's a big deal. Nowadays, you got a standard GT that pumps out 465, and then you're going to go ahead and pump out, the Bullet has 485. Oh, by the way, the Mach 1 is just a rebadged Bullet, right? Basically, it's got a couple extra features on it, I know, and they put all these, emblems, of course, that any 5-year-old could do it nowadays and slap on the car. That's really all it is, right? And you're talking about a whopping 20 horsepower for the standard Mustang, and for that matter, it's probably pretty much the same as the Performance Pack 2. You've got nothing really inspiring there, and that's what the Mach 1 was a performance-inspired vehicle, and that's where I'm really burned up with Ford a little bit. They took a performance-inspired Mustang and turn it into just another, badge from history to throw out there and to try and make a little bit more money as an apology car from Ford. Not to mention, you're generating more confusion because of the Mach-E that's coming out. Now, for enthusiasts like you and I and people who know something about the history and understand what a Mach 1 is, this may be very clear-cut distinction. For people in the market who don't get it, I have a lot of people squinting at my car being like, Mach 1, what is that? Like, they just don't understand. They don't know what a Mach 1 Mustang is. So then now you have the Mach-E, Mach 1. I mean, for someone like me, yeah, if someone who's a performance enthusiast and knows Ford, they'll understand the difference. But, you have two diametrically opposed vehicles here, an electric vehicle and a, retro, throwback vehicle that's that's supposed to be a pinnacle of Coyote performance. There's going to be a lot of confusion between that because they're coming out at the same time too. I think Ford really dropped the ball on this whole thing, and basically it's just an apology vehicle to all the people out there who are upset about the Mach-E, which I made a video about that. I won't go into that too much. But the bottom line is that, for this Mach 1, it's just completely uninspired, and any 18-year-old can do something like this in their garage nowadays, right? Slap a cold air intake and a tune-on and some badges, and you've got yourself a Mach 1. You couldn't do that back in the day, and even 2003, 2004, that was a special car for those times, and this is just completely uninteresting and not that special. And, you know, from my standpoint, I tried very hard to work with and generate a car that was going to be a true retro throwback and really put some cues in there that people would appreciate and understand. And it seems like Ford just didn't do any of that here, which I think is just a real shame. And that's the heritage and the lack of inspiration and creativity is what really burns me up here. Now, to cap this up, if I was Ford, what would I have done? As a Mustang enthusiast, I think Ford blew an enormous opportunity here. And what they should have done is they should have either released it as a 50th anniversary edition around that time as something special, or, of course, instead of releasing the Bullet in 2019, they should have released the Mach 1 instead. The Mach 1 should have come before the Bullet, in my opinion, just out of heritage. And Ford's really burned it here by releasing the Bullet and then just releasing an apology car, which is basically just a rebadged Bullet. And I think, you know, that's where they really dropped the bomb. I always thought that the S550 was a perfect platform to release a Mach 1 Mustang because it really threw back to the heritage, especially in my opinion, the 70s heritage, the 71 through 73 Mach 1s. I think it was just a great opportunity and they really squandered it here. I think they really should have taken their time and they should have come up with something a lot more special. But the bottom line is, what would I have done? I would have released it as the 50th, or I would have released it before the Bullet. I would have done it before the Bullet Mustang and probably try to add a little something to it. The 485 is okay. I think, you know, big mistake number one is releasing it after the Bullet, and people just feel gypped and you know, gypped by that they got something that's just a rebadged car, especially for something that's so integral to Mustang history. And you know, what they should have done is they should have, I think, lightly supercharged it. They should have put, you know, a Ford Performance, you know, from the factory right out the gate. They should have put it in there. And they should have, you know, given it probably like, you know, 500, 550 wheel horsepower, I would say. Given it, you know, quite a bit of a boost. And that would have given everybody something interesting, right? I mean, it would have competed a bit with the GT350, but, you know, the GT350 is a completely different vehicle. The flat plane crank, the way that car revs really high for the Voodoo, I don't think it would have been a competition at all. People would be looking for entirely two different things there. You would have a blower car that would be much better in a straight line. You know, you could tune it in for something like that, probably give it Ford Performance half shafts or something. Really give you know, the enthusiasts something they can sink their teeth into. And you're not really competing with the GT350 there. That's a different market. You might get a little bit of spillover, but hell, then you got two different models right there that are, you know, catering to something a little bit different. And just put a little bit more time and effort into the car. Give it a ram air hood, give it something, which I guess the faux fog lamps are, but it just feels like a mixed up mashup to me. It doesn't feel like anything special, and they really didn't take their time and do their homework on this one for their own history. So I'm really miffed about that, and that's where I'm really burned up. And it's going to be really interesting. I will be very excited to talk to people who see my car and be like, oh, well, when did you do this or whatnot? And be like, well, you know, I was inspired by this a long time ago because my family had a 72 Mach 1, and I've always been a big fan of the Mach 1, waiting for it to come out. And now it comes out, and you know what? I'm happy I built mine the way I did, and I'm happy I badged my own, because it's something I think, in my opinion, is a lot more special than what Ford's coming out with. You know, over 600 horsepower to the ground. A lot of the accents, as I mentioned, I added, you know, I really try to do a retro throwback theme here. All the decals and emblems I used are from a reproduction from a 70s, 72 or 73 Mach 1. Everything that's on the car is all throwback there. So it's really a true retro styled car that at this point has gotten a lot of looks, and a lot of people seem to like it, seem to like the build. You know, and if people who say that I'm just copping out from Ford, well, they can go deal with it, because I got 600 horsepower. So go shove off. That's what I have to say about that. But that's really wrapping up my thoughts on that. I think Ford kind of did an injustice there. I think they're not really listening to their own roots, and it's just going to go down in history, just kind of under the radar as something else, you know, another model Ford came out with, like the Bullet or something else. For how cool some of those things are, it just doesn't inspire anything, you know, special to me. So it's kind of a mixed bag. I will be very interested to get to the shows out there at some point, either this year or next year, with everything that's going on, and talk to people and, you know, see what they feel and see. So then for the second part here, I'm going to be getting out of the car and going around and show you guys a lot of stuff that I added at this point. Primarily, much of it is performance oriented, but you know, some nice styling cues also. If you've been paying attention to my Instagram, you've probably seen that stuff there. So it's been great talking. You know, leave your comments below. Tell me whether or not you agree, what your viewpoints are on the Mach 1. I'd be interested to hear and what you guys think of my build. So you guys take care, stay safe out there, and I'll catch you next time.